Graham G. Matthews here with Bleacher Report and WrestleRant. Today we're talking to SmackDown superstar Aleister Black. Bit busy at the moment with Damian Priest and everything else going on Friday nights alongside his wife, Zelina Vega as well. Aleister, you've been quite the busy man since being back in WWE, my man. How you doing?
Very good, man. Thank you for asking. How are you yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm doing well as we head into Survivor Series weekend coming up next week as we're speaking right now. And like I said, I'm enjoying what you're doing right now, my man, on SmackDown with Damian Priest. You guys have been kind of at odds for a number of months now, even before that, coming back to WWE. We're coming up on the, what, 7 month, I think, anniversary, or not anniversary, but the 7 month mark in the time that you've been back in WWE. Just
Yep.
wanted to know, how's it been back being in WWE so far in the 7 months you've been with the company?
It's been absolutely fantastic. I have no complaints. I think in the beginning, obviously, we're kind of like looking as to what fits and how we're going to fit things and, how things kind of play out. Establishing, or more should I say, reestablishing parts of what once was with some different twists and some evolutionary traits in regards to the initial character. And eventually, obviously, finding my groove a lot more with the Damian Priest, and now obviously the second or third iteration in regards to that with my wife. Yeah, no, it's been really good, man. From just the traveling itself, obviously getting to travel with my wife, and just having the matches in the locker rooms, and yeah, the whole experience, man. I really cannot complain at all.
And what a whirlwind it's been. I mean, the time that you've been back in WWE, everything you've been involved in, and even the last couple of years, leaving the company, coming back earlier this year. Did you ever envision a point, not only that you'd be back in WWE, but like not only just the character that you're doing right now as well, but like you said, being able to work alongside your wife? When at one point it didn't appear that would be possible when you were elsewhere. At one point, she wasn't here, she came back, you were gone. Did you ever envision this would actually happen? This is like a dream come true for you?
Well, so the thing is, like, I'm a very take it as it goes
Hmm.
kind of person. Back in 2020, about a couple months before I left, and we started running the installments of the Dark Father characters. I'm sure you remember the vignettes. There was an actual plan to align my wife with me
Hmm.
um, initially, and we actually shot some test vignettes at that point. So it was something that was supposed to happen. Obviously, I went elsewhere and did what I did there, came back, and it was a topic of conversation that was immediately had between writers and Triple H. And initially, it was, we'll see. Then it was, I don't think that's a good idea. And then it became, you know what? No, I think we should do it. And it was at the right time, I guess. I think they envisioned something for about 3 months before it happened. They started kind of having the conversation again, and some installments were discussed, and kind of some back and forth in regards to what it would look like. And then obviously the old vignettes were pulled up, and what the perspective and the ideas were there. So we kind of blended that, and I mean the rest is obviously what you saw. And I am extremely happy that we're getting to do that, especially because also, obviously I know what's to come, and added things that we're going to do in terms
Hmm.
of, like, just me with my wife in regards to wrestling and appearances and stuff, and also in ring stuff. It's been very fun. We've been working on a lot of things because obviously we have our own school, so we've been taking the time in the school to work on some pretty unique uh, offense, I should say.
I mean, we'll still obviously still time will tell as far as that goes when we see you guys in the ring teaming on SmackDown, hopefully very soon, like you say, and
Yep.
we look forward to that. But just kind of based on that experience alone, with everything you mentioned, kind of coming back, and it's only been a matter of months, like we said, but not initially getting to run with that idea right from the get go, which was probably best, coming back with the original music and then kind of
Mhm.
being on your own for a little bit, and
Yep.
then slowly, introducing her into the mix. How
Mhm.
does that kind of compare from when you were last with the company years ago? Obviously, completely different regime, where, like you mentioned, it was something that you had kind of pitched for, and was kind of hoping to do.
Mhm.
Frowned upon, didn't get to do it, obviously. Have you noticed like any drastic difference as far as the creative process, with as far as you pitching stuff and kind of how they take it? And they're not going to accept everything, obviously, but as far as how you've been able to kind of work with them with what we're seeing right now on SmackDown with you.
Well, first, I wouldn't say that it was frowned upon. It was something that was actually brought up straight away. Like I said, it wasn't
Hmm.
frowned upon at all. It was just that they initially, them being Hunter, uh, thought it was a good idea. Then he was kind of against it, and then and this was something that the writers were talking about. This is not something that I had anything to do with,
Yep.
but eventually was brought forward. And then eventually, when certain things, I think 3, 4 months ago, that's where he came back up on the topic and he brought it back up, and that's how the conversation started happening. It was definitely not frowned upon. Coming back, obviously, like you said, the whole structure is completely changed. It's a very different environment. And at the same time, there's a lot of similarities because obviously the business will be the business. It's ran very smooth, in my opinion.
Hmm.
But it's ran differently. Obviously, Vince had a very different vision in regards to all of it. But, the business is still ran the way the business is. The structure is still the same. It's just the idea and the executions are often filtered through a different lens. And coming back itself, yeah, I mean, like, in the last 7 months coming in and being immediately thrown in the mix with, some of the biggest baby faces and working uh, main events. And then obviously a week ago, working a main event with the current world champion. Like it's a night and day difference from obviously uh, years before that. And also like obviously my first installment, but yeah, like I said, man, it's been great, and the creative process has been great. In the beginning, there was a lot of like throwing out ideas because
Hmm.
obviously, and like I said, we have to find some pitch and some ideas, and not everything gets used, absolutely. But I've always had a good relationship with Hunter, whereas I would give an idea, and he would either tweak the idea, not utilize the idea, but then maybe later on, when there was an opportunity for something, he would bring it back up and say, you know what, right there, remember when you said that? We can use that right now.
Hmm.
So there's always like an idea jar that we can pull from, and stuff with the masks and stuff like that, and doing it on certain occasions, and when it's an easier way for us to tell the story as to why I wear them or what they should be representing. That process is similar as it was in NXT, perhaps not as embraced,
Yeah.
because in NXT obviously there was a lot more wiggle room for certain things, and here it's ran very different. There's a lot more lenses where things have to go through, but it's more than it was in regards to when Vince was there. And I think also because Hunter has this very specific vision, and I think I align a lot with that vision in terms of like what I think he wants from me, but then also what he gives to me is something that I can digest very easily and work with.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it right there too. I feel like there's so many elements of what we're seeing right now, not only with you, but just kind of on WWE TV in general, that kind of gives black and gold vibes from NXT. And I mean, it will never be truly replicated. It was just a
Sure.
kind of span of time that was just so special. And like you said, there's
Mhm.
so many differences. The main roster is just so much bigger. It's a much bigger beast than just NXT as a 1 hour show when you were on it years ago, and then later 2 hours as it is now. Are there other elements that you notice and kind of being back? Obviously, the biggest similarity is Triple H now being in charge creatively and all this other sort of stuff, but other elements of in the time that you've been back in WWE that kind of give you like, oh, this is a lot similar to when I was in NXT for those few years that kind of bring you back to that place. And I guess also some of the people that you're working with too. I mean, I guess you didn't work with Sami Zayn the last time you were here, but he being an NXT black and gold, kind of forefather of that brand from before you got there years ago. And I guess stuff kind of along those lines that reminds you of your time in NXT from a few years ago.
Well, I did work with Sami Zayn
Oh, really?
the last time I was around. Yes, we had a small little feud. Um, the similarities are that I feel that the writers are a lot more involved,
Hmm.
and I think that the writers that they have, which is a mix of a lot of the familiar faces and a lot of like newer people. I think the team that they have functions incredibly well. It's a lot of really good back and forth. It's a lot of really creative ideas, and the people that are assigned with me, like for instance, I work a lot with Eric Watts, who's like one of my writers, or Colin Clark,
Hmm.
who is the individual kind of oversees me, and I bounce a bunch of ideas off of. They have been giving me absolutely fantastic feedback, whereas in NXT back in the day, we would work a lot with the writers, of course, in a similar setting. I feel that has kind of been brought over from NXT, and it's actually harped up, where I feel that they are much more part of the team now than they were when I was there the first time. And of course, we worked with writers back then, but there's just something about the involvement and the freedom that we have with the writers in terms of promos, in terms of how we want to say things, that was very prevalent in NXT that we are able to do now here as well. And that makes the product, in my opinion, a hell of a lot better when you let the performers or the wrestlers or the entertainers, whatever you will, really dive into what their characters want to say.
Mhm. And I think another big similarity too that we've seen from NXT to kind of what we're seeing now compared to the previous regime in WWE is
Mm-hmm.
primarily with the PLEs and the pay-per-views as far as how they're formatted. Now, like with WrestleMania back in the day, now it's 2 days, which is I think a big benefit to a lot of the talent and the fans as well. But
Yeah.
like at one point in time with the pay-per-views, there were like I mean, you've been on a number of them from on both regimes, but especially when you were here the last time, 8 match pay-per-views. Over in AEW, they have 12 match pay-per-views. But nowadays it's like 5, 6 matches with the newer PLEs. And I
Mm-hmm.
think there's obviously pros and cons to both approaches. But it reminds me a lot of NXT because
Yeah.
NXT would have the quarterly takeovers, but they would only be 4 or 5 matches. Now, granted, it's a smaller roster at that point, but I feel like it kind of makes it fight harder for that real estate, I guess, in like a good way, as far as like you really not only just, I mean, everyone deserves the spot, but like earning that spot and making sure your stuff stands out. Like, so I guess from that standpoint, just kind of getting your thoughts on, do you feel like there's a real, when you do end up on a PLE, like we get the big blow off with Damian Priest on whatever show it might be, and there might be less PLEs now compared to what there used to be, fighting harder for that real estate and kind of really making it mean something, and as opposed to just ending up on a PLE and getting 2 minutes and not really having a chance to stand out, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think having last matches on PLAs, especially because they're a lot more frequent, makes a lot more sense.
Yep.
Even back when I worked in Japan a lot, that was kind of like the given 5, 6 matches a night because it keeps everything a lot more special.
Sure.
The second you go above, in my personal opinion, above the level of 7 or 8 matches, you're going to wear out the crowd a lot. And, we live in an age where attention spans are very limited. Everything is a lot of gratification. So the longer you let something go for the sake of having people on the card, um, because you want to put people on the card for say, that might be at the detriment of the product with the perceived experience by fans.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing because there will always be people that are absolutely enjoying it from start to finish. But I think that I can say that having match cards that are excessively big will eventually work in the detriment of the like I said, perceived experience itself.
Yeah.
Um, I think that WWE made a right call with like limiting the matches a little bit because again, like I said, it makes it easier to digest, gives you more time to divide your attention on the things that you want to pay attention to in terms of like storytelling and match quality. Even back then, like yeah, there were moments where there were nine matches on a card, for instance, and yeah, some people would get 3 minutes because time is short and we only
Hmm.
have X amount of spots and stuff like that. Where yeah, I mean, you can make a case that it'd be harder to be on a PLE, but at the same time, the frequency of the PLEs has also increased. So I would say it evens itself out a little bit, but I definitely think that that is, in my personal opinion, always been the way forward, where less is more. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Do you have a preference between being a babyface or a heel? Obviously, you've been a bad guy now for a few months, and we've seen it before from your original run in the company, your time elsewhere on the independent scene. So it's not something that's exactly new to you. You're obviously very familiar to the role, but as a good guy too, coming back to the company, getting great reactions, and it kind of fits with that character. I feel like you excel in both areas. But for you personally, do you have a preference?
I think I enjoy being a heel much more, which is
Hmm.
obviously standard answer. That's what most people I think would say. Um, I enjoy being a babyface, especially like obviously the first run in NXT because it was a different type of babyface. It wasn't the here I am, guys, cheer for me kind of babyface. It was a much more energy-driven, stoic babyface in regards to the actions that he would have, and obviously this iteration is a lot more verbally driven,
Hmm.
where there is a certain suicidalness to this character where he self-destructs a lot more because he has a lot more of a cynical look at what society is. I would say that my characters often have been a bit of a, not even a bit of, but like they're a bit of a mirror of society in regards to how I personally view society is and how I a lot of times see our society for what it is, or like how the human race interacts or acts. And I think I always have done a pretty decent job of um, walking on the energy fields of that. And I enjoy that thoroughly because it's something that I understand. And it's a long-term storytelling because obviously society is an ever-changing thing, and the way that people perceive things is an ever-changing thing. But there's always this red threading, and that's why, like I said, there's this self-destructiveness to this character where
Hmm.
I think you can transcend the idea of winning and losing. Where even back in AEW, where the character was much more about, well, it's not just about winning or losing because I made you do X, Y, and Z, and I proved to you that I could corrupt you. I proved to you that I could make you do all these things. And I'm happy that I was able to grab a big element of that and implement that into this one and stick a whole new layer to it. A layer that we're obviously still kind of like cementing out and fleshing out because it's an ever changing work in progress. So I enjoy that process a lot, especially because it gives me stuff to digest. It gives me stuff to work with. It gives me stuff to work to. And, whenever I have done a promo or a match or my opponent has said X, Y, or Z, it allows me to kind of digest that through that filter and then say, what would my rebuttal be other than acting out of an emotional response instead of like getting mad or angry that someone would call me a coward, for instance.
Hmm.
Like for me, it would be much more is like, okay, why is he calling you a coward? And then like kind of looping around it and saying, well, you're calling me a coward because you're actually worried. And you think that calling me a coward is what's going to make me feel mentally inferior, or that there is some truth to what you're saying, but what I hear is your projections. And that's
Hmm.
kind of like, the character is able to see beyond the words and not respond emotionally, but respond back to why the opposite character is saying that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to what we're seeing right now with your character, and it has been for a while. Like, this isn't just something new with what you've been
Mhm.
saying on SmackDown and your vignettes and stuff. But I just think it's pretty incredible that you took something so small from 5 years ago when you were attacked on Raw from by Seth Rollins with the whole eye thing,
Mhm.
and then that was the evolution for your character at that point. And then you took that to AEW and used that for a while, and now even coming back with that with the different color eye contact and everything else. I mean, I would have to imagine that's something that I mean, obviously, this is cross promotional, so it's not just, you being told to do that or whatever. Can you kind of give me some insight on your mindset behind that whole thing and how it's kind of carried you to where you are now? And you just talked about that awesome deep dive process with your character and how that one little small thing from that stupid match that Rollins and Ray had from 2020 during COVID, you turned that something into so much bigger that we're seeing now, and it's been pretty cool to see across multiple companies.
This is something that I felt gave me a layer to communicate from, and it gave me a reason to have a cynical layer to this character. I've always been a big fan of James Bond villains,
Okay.
and James Bond villains always have something supernatural without being supernatural.
Hmm.
You look at Jaws, he had like metal teeth. You look at Blofeld, he had that weird eye and scar on his eye, and um, it gave them something unique, something to be feared of. The man with the golden gun. It's almost like a supernatural esque narrative, while the reality is there's nothing supernatural about it, and they're much more like psychological villains. And I have always enjoyed that process where there is a means to an end. And I felt that when we did the eye thing, it gave me a lot to talk about, but it gave me a reason to kind of revert back to, because a lot of that had to do with the accountability and not wanting to take the accountability for the character and blaming everybody else
Hmm.
but himself. But the reality is, he's the one who decided to help, uh, Dominic Mysterio at the time and Ray, and pay dearly for it with his eyesight. And I felt that it was such a significant thing for the character that I almost felt that it would be cheating myself if I didn't make it an actual part of the character. Now, there's a part of me that also likes asymmetrical designs. I've always been fascinated by something that's asymmetrical, and there's a weird balance in asymmetrical things.
Hmm.
If obviously that sounds like a bit of a counter argument, but there's something about it that I like, and it just speaks to me in a way that I can communicate my character and understand my character a lot better, it's given me a motivation and a reason beyond just the aesthetic.
No, it makes sense. And it's, again, something that's not only given you great character evolution in the last 5 years. Again, this is not something that happened a year ago, like the last 5 years, but it also just looks cool too, like the whole asymmetrical aspect of it, as you
Yeah.
mentioned. And being back in WWE when you first came back, when the rumors were kind of swirling that you were going to be back earlier this year and whatnot, the first question in everyone's mind is, will he come back with the old music? Obviously, the answer was yes. We heard it hit on the post WrestleMania SmackDown. Got a great reaction. It's a
Yep.
bit different, but I think it obviously legally has to be. There's a whole story behind that. But for
Mhm.
you coming back, was that part, especially as a babyface initially, was that something that you were like, I mean, obviously you're going to just do whatever works for the company, whatever's best, but like, was that something that you were kind of hoping for? Like, I feel like people would react best if we kind of brought back the original music. Can you kind of bring me behind the process and the evolution of getting that song back, which was so synonymous with your character during your original run?
I mean, it was the only thing that would make sense.
Yep.
Like that's the only thing for the most part that like, people can cling on to. And over the years, the amount of people that, would reference my music, because like the package was obviously, the rising up out of nowhere, the music, the lights, the jackets, the aesthetic, the stoicness, and just the nature of the character in that regard. They were one package. So if you would take one element out from the package, you would tarnish the package
Hmm.
and you would tarnish the memory or level of expectation that fans would have. So we didn't want to take anything away from it. And even before any conversations were had, what directions it would take, the conversation immediately went like, we're going to do this and this. And those both included the coming out of nowhere, rising up, and the music. That was obviously the first thing that were right back on the table.
They had to be. I mean, I just feel like, especially with the, presentation that we saw from you in NXT
Yeah.
coming to the main roster. I mean, even on the main roster, we didn't really get to see all of it. You had the song there for a while, but was it not long into your main roster run the first time they kind of added, this was notoriously a Vince thing. Maybe you can confirm this, that the creaking of the board or whatever, which wasn't awful, but it's like the small things that make the biggest differences.
That was definitely a Vince thing.
Yeah.
I think Vince thought that the character was a vampire, and he felt like like old school Nosferatu, rising up, 1920s Count Orlok type.
Yep.
So he felt that he heard a creak, and that's why he wanted to have the creak there. I didn't mind it as much, but I feel like for fans, it was a little bit of a discontinuation of
Sure.
what they love and see. And change is always difficult for a lot of people to accept. And this wasn't the biggest change, but I do feel that I understand where fans were coming from, because I don't personally think that it added a lot. It also kind of like negated what I thought of what the character was. So, it's a different translation, but at the same time, like I could translate it and it was fine.
Yeah.
It didn't make me a very different character all just because there was a creek. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's something that he wanted to do. And, that was fine. It didn't change my mind on a lot of things, but it was definitely his thought process in that regard.
Yeah, no, kind of putting a spin on it, which we had seen with so many people other at at that point, so it wasn't entirely surprising. But and coming back to the company, you came back on the post WrestleMania SmackDown, which is a pretty prime show to come back on. I mean, it wasn't the post WrestleMania crowd, but it was still a pretty great crowd.
Mhm.
And what do you remember the city that it was in that night that you came back?
Oh boy, gosh, that's a dime a dozen. I nowadays, even with my
Yeah,
wife, when we go to shop, and this has been a thing with me for a very very long time.
yeah,
I just show up at the airport and I pull my boarding pass out, and at that point, like, oh, you're going to so and so? I said, yeah, I guess that's what we're doing.
yeah. No,
No, I
that
do
makes sense.
not remember what city we were in. I
Yeah.
know that probably sounds bad, but it's just because of all the travel
No,
and
I get it. Yeah,
week to week basis of just like getting in and out. At one point, you kind of lose track of the amount of
yeah.
cities that you've seen.
No, I can imagine. They all kind of blend together. But nonetheless, it was a good crowd that night because they obviously remembered and they gave you a great reaction. Was there ever I guess on your end, as far as what you know, like the process of coming back? Like that was a pretty great show to come back on because that's kind of like when the deck is kind of reset, so to speak, in WWE right after WrestleMania,
Yeah.
making it more of a surprise. I mean, the last time you had left and and appeared in AEW, you've talked about that whole process before,
Yeah.
kind of like popping up out of nowhere and everyone thinking you had 90-day non-compete. It was actually 30 days, one of the best debuts in any company in the last 5 years. Coming back to WWE, this was still pretty great. You got the vignette treatment. It wasn't confirmed it was you. It's not like the name popped up on the screen, but it was
Yeah.
still pretty special when you popped up. Was there ever any idea, as far as as far as making it more of like, because people are thinking, oh, you'll be in the Rumble, like, but I don't think you were free yet. So making it more of a surprise than what we got the night after WrestleMania, or was that always the plan?
So they were toying with a bunch of ideas. I know at one point there was this conversation about like, oh, maybe he's coming back to wrestle Randy Orton at Mania, and
Hmm.
that was an actual thing that was discussed. But you also have to understand that that wasn't a isolated thing as to like, oh, maybe it could be this, and then obviously all the focus went on that. It's more like, they'll check a list of names and they'll be like, oh, maybe it's this person. Oh, maybe it's this person. Hey, maybe, well, why don't we get so and so?
Yeah.
And it was counter-argued quickly because they were like, well, we don't want him to lose coming back at WrestleMania. That doesn't make any sense. So that was just a one end, like, oh, maybe we can do that. You know what? No, because, so and so. And at that point, they kind of already made the decision to bring me back. By the way, was it Texas? It was Texas because it's going to bug me.
Hmm. Oh,
Did I
what
come,
for
come
the
back in
book?
Texas?
Oh,
It
the
was Texas,
Wrestle.
right?
I think. Let me check. I'll look it up. I'm pretty sure it
It's
was in
gonna it's
Texas.
gonna bug the hell out of me.
I'll look it up while you're talking. Let me see.
Okay. Um, yeah. So they had decided on it. Then the Randy Orton thing came up. Then they were very quick to go like, no, let's keep it there.
Yep.
They felt that they wanted to give it the right attention. They wanted it to be like, specifically about me, which I'm very grateful for. And what happened, and I really enjoyed it. It was a great night. It's the same night that my wife obviously won her first singles title.
Hmm.
Very unique, very unique few days. Even the leading up after that, like obviously, it was a very good memory. Very
Yeah,
very special, very unique.
for sure. And I just checked. It was indeed Texas. It was in Fort Worth specifically.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah, no, very good crowd that night. I don't think it's been done very often where we've seen a match, as we wind down here in the next couple minutes, that we've seen a match in AEW that has then been done in WWE. I know we've seen matches in WWE that were done there, but
Yeah,
like you and Cody Rhodes, I obviously wasn't done during WWE the first time he wasn't here, but we
yeah.
just saw that on SmackDown recently. I thought it was very cool. You guys got to run it back. Obviously, you can't really go too much into the history of elsewhere. It's a whole thing, but getting to run it back on SmackDown to the main event, like you mentioned earlier, just talk about that experience. And I just feel like it'd be cool to kind of see that revisited as a formal feud down the road, whether it be with Cody from, AEW or the Rollins thing, like you said
Yeah,
from earlier, when he kind of caused the eye injury or blaming Rey Mysterio. I
yeah.
feel like there's so many possibilities for you going forward.
There is endless possibilities, and the roster is so stacked nowadays. There's so much new talent there, and so much great new talent. Like the NXT talent pool is absolutely filled with very young, exciting wrestlers to keep an eye on, and hopefully that I get to work with. I'm very blessed to be in the stage of my career where I feel like I'm more seasoned and better than I've ever been. I physically look better, feel better than I've
Hmm.
ever done. And being able to work these incredible people, and obviously, Cody Rhodes. There's a reason why he's the world champion. I don't think other than like John Cena, I've seen anybody work as hard as that he does. He's always on the road. He's always busy. He's always promoting. He's always representing the company. He's someone that I look up to very, very much so. So when I got the chance to wrestle him in a quick little, a little taster is what
Yeah.
I would call it, and that's also kind of what the prerogative was. It was, just give him something that makes people excited for what could possibly happen down the line, which I think we did. It was a lot of fun, and it was, and it's always a good day when I get to wrestle Cody because he's absolutely one of the easiest people to work with. He's super professional, has a great mind for where to place things, how to place things, but also how to let every opponent be unique and let them shine in their respected abilities. And that's something that, especially with Cody, that I'm always grateful for. And moving down the line, yeah, I absolutely hope that we get to replay the whole thing with myself and Seth, because there is
Hmm.
obviously a lot of storytelling there, and even the fact that we got to do this little nudge a while ago when I wrestled LA Knight, We got to do this little nudge of me and Seth, and hearing the crowd, getting up for it. That's
Hmm.
just, that's great. That's a validation as to what we did, as small as it was at the time, because it was obviously during the COVID era. It still resonated with a lot of people,
Yeah.
and that's always very rewarding. And I think that's the fun part in professional wrestling, is that you can always go back to something if the story is told properly, and it makes people excited for things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Listen, man, I know you know this, but wrestling fans remember. They remember even the smallest bit of things. I'm sure
Absolutely.
you
Yep.
get that all the time, but
Mhm.
I look forward to that in the future. Last question for you, though. Can you tell me what music you're listening to right now and what's inspiring you as far as like maybe what your current character is and
Mhm.
just what you're listening to in general?
I mean, I think everybody always knows that I'm a big black metal and
Yeah.
hardcore guy, metal, etc. A band that's always like inspired me is a band called Garea. They actually do something aesthetically that I am having. I had some stuff made that I have not debuted yet. That's something that they do, that not only in the music, but also, like I said, the aesthetic versions of things that they represent and things that they do made me think a lot. And for instance, the sigil that I'm using right now on the drawing on my logos. And of course, I know what sigils were before this band, but they had a specific way of like using these sigils, and that made me think a lot. I think that's an important thing for me always with music. It has to inspire me. Bands like Terror, in terms of like their 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 way of thinking, their lyrics, what they represent, what they stand for, what the message is. Those are things that always kind of keep me very motivated and allow me to have verbiage and allow me to use the meanings of certain song lyrics to write promos in regards to. A big one has always been like retain their aesthetics and you know visuals. Gridiron is another one that I really, really, really love. Um, the list of music, and it's funny because I did an interview yesterday with a gentleman named Cody Tucker, and he asked me about my Mount Rushmore of music, and I'm like,
Mhm.
oh God, there's like literally hundreds of bands that I listen to, and all of them have their own unique, special place with me as to how they inspire me, whether that is musically only or like aesthetically in combination with the music. It's a never ending process for me. And I think when the time comes to hang up my kick pads in this case, not my boots, it would be very difficult for me to separate the music from the inspiration as
Awesome.
to how much it means to me to listen to music in that regard.
Yeah, no, some good stuff there, man. Hopefully that's no time soon. Hopefully we can continue enjoying you on SmackDown for the foreseeable future as part of this ongoing rivalry with Damian Priest that we've been
Yeah,
digging since you've been back in WWE. Hey, listen, man, I appreciate the time. When you came back to WWE earlier this year, my girlfriend and I are both massive fans. But when she specifically loves the music, so when she heard that, she lost her shit and was probably as they say, marking out over that for quite a while. So we appreciate you being back, and we love what you're doing right now with Zelina.
thank you very much, man. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, dude. Take care. We'll talk down the road.
Take care.